There is this idea that feminism is about hating men. That feminists are angry, that they're bitter, that they are just man haters. And I think it's worth just asking where it is that this idea came from in the first place. Because often the word feminist gets used as a way to dismiss women who dare to challenge a system that keeps women small, that keeps them quiet, that keeps them manageable, or even just like a little bit grateful for the things that they have because we are allowed to now have them, like owning a house or getting a job or having a bank account or even being able to get decent medical care. We should be grateful for all of that. And calling women man haters in this context, in the feminist context, is a really easy way to just shut down the conversation. Like, if you think about feminist, what is that for you? Like, for me, it might be something completely different from you. But typically, when people are using, oh, she's a feminist, it instantly creates this thing of like, well, she must hate men then. That's not the case. And I'm going to explain to you why. So, I'm Julie, and I am a women's health and wellbeing coach and personal trainer. And I help women build habits that fit in with their real life, not the fantasy version that health culture likes to tell us. This is where we untangle all the noise, rethink what healthy actually means, and make changes that feel doable, calm, and genuinely yours. Now, am I going off topic here? Absolutely not. Because when I decided to basically take apart my entire business and put it all back together again in a completely different order and change what it is that I am passionate about to include it into my business, women's health, women's my passion to sort of like help women feel better about themselves includes this type of conversation. And so it's because it's important, right? If women are kept small by the way that society treats them, then that is my job. So this is a really interesting topic to talk about. And it's kind of come up a lot recently in my personal life, and there's lots of things going on that are just making me feel really ragey inside. So I thought that today's um, podcast is just going to be about feminism and not all men and how what we can do to change that conversation. By all accounts, I should hate men. I did a video recently, or a reel recently, about my experience with men and in relation to how the victims are are being punished for the things other people did, right? And I, by all accounts, I absolutely should hate men. I should be scared of men. I have spent my childhood around men who liked to remind me daily that I wasn't important enough to be liked. And then I was in a relationship where this person nearly ended my life. So for the first 18, 20 years of my life, I had been conditioned to not trust men, that men are dangerous. And add to these the messages of that we get as girls growing up from magazines, from TV, from our society about how we should behave, about how we should look, about how careful we should be. Walking home with the keys between our fingers to make sure that we're safe so that we can harm somebody who's going to harm us. To call somebody while we're walking home, or we can't wear that we should cover up because that's not safe. All of these messages create a an idea in our head that we should hate men, that men aren't safe, that we have to look after ourselves because we are not safe around men and men are dangerous. And then women stand up for themselves, and then we're being told that we hate men because we are trying to protect ourselves from men. So there is this kind of, you know, like I said, feminism has been used to create a idea of what a feminist is. But this is exactly what we've been taught. And here's the thing: most of us don't believe that, most of us don't hate men. Most of us don't think that men are dangerous because we know that genuinely know that it is not all men. We know this because we experience this. And it's part of, it's the thing that always gets shouted about. It's like, yeah, but it's not all men when we're talking about these things. It's not all men. We know it's not all men. We know that. The problem is we don't know which men it is. This is the problem. We know that it's not all men, but we do not know which men it is. And because this idea that feminism is about hating men, because that is the story that we have been sold about it, because when women stand up for themselves, it's like, that can't be tolerated, so we kind of push women down a couple of pegs or not, so then we label feminism as being this thing or being these people who hate men. We don't hate men. We absolutely don't. We absolutely do not. It is about wanting the same healthcare as men. If it wasn't for all of those wonderful women who fought for our rights to own our own houses, to have bank accounts, to have decent healthcare, to be able to get jobs, to be able to vote, that's what feminism is. It's about creating these same equalities. It's about creating same pay. It's about having choices, our choices over how our body is being treated and respected. It's wanting to be treated like a human being, not something that needs to be controlled or managed or even constantly corrected because we can't possibly think for ourselves. Now, you might be one of those men who says it's not all men. And you might not be one of those men who does these things to women or thinks these ways about women. And good, keep on being that type of man. That's absolutely good. My husband isn't. My husband is my biggest cheerleader. Every harebrained idea that I have, he is on my side. Sometimes tells me that no, we cannot do that. And that's fine. Do I feel like I'm being personally attacked for it? No. Do I feel like he is controlling me? No. This is just a normal conversation between a husband and wife about what it is that we can and cannot do. I don't feel like it's a personal attack or it's trying to keep me down. And every single man in my life that I have right now also is not in that on that list of men who causes harm to women. So I surround myself with people who are in the not all men crew, absolutely. But even after these men who physically hurt me, I still knew that it wasn't all men. I don't hate men. There absolutely are women out there who don't like men. There are women, feminists out there who don't like men. And I'm sure it's for very good reason, just like there are men out there who hate women. It's no different, except we get labeled as it. We get labeled as something because we have the audacity to stand up for our own rights. And I'm just going off track slightly there, but let's get back to it because I will have a rant and I don't want to have a rant. So I I wouldn't necessarily label myself as as a feminist because I don't actually like labels in general for reasons that I've just explained. We get labeled with something, therefore we are that type of person. You're a feminist, therefore you must hate men. No, you are so and so, therefore you must be behaving like this. Not true. So I don't like labels, don't like them, don't use them. But I stand by the principles of feminism, and I stand up for women in that context that that we should be treated like human beings, right? But that does not mean that I hate men. And but the problem is, what I do hate is when how women are treated by a certain group of men. I don't like how women's medical care is being dismissed, how women avoid going to the doctors because they're told it's probably hormonal, but nothing ever gets done to check out whether it is or it isn't, whether there's something more going on. We're just told to come back later and see if it sorts itself out. Men typically don't get treated like that. That is what I find frustrating. That is what makes me stand up for women or stand side by women, or when there is a problem, I turn it around and be like, yes, actually, that is a problem. That needs to be sorted. That's not normal, right? And I don't like how women are expected to look a certain way so that they can please the eyes of men. I just, no. Nope, nope, nope. And I also don't like how policymakers get to decide um, about women's. What did I see recently? It was about having women's portion sizes on menus. I haven't looked into that, so I don't know how true that is. But saying that, it also doesn't surprise me that that could be a thing. Because again, it's about telling women can't possibly think for themselves. So we need to do these things to think for women. So this sends a message to us that we can't think for ourselves, that we can't trust ourselves, that we should be smaller in all areas of our life, not just physically, but all areas. But we're also kind of stuck because we're sent this message that you can be successful. These doors are open to you. Embrace them. You can grow. You can go up this kind of corporate ladder. You can do and be whatever it is that you want to be, or you can have a family because you can't do both. You can either stay at home and be a mum, or you can be a bad mum and choose a career. Now, this isn't necessarily directly said, but it is definitely implied that that is how society works. And this might not feel very true for a lot of people, and that's absolutely fine. There is a huge group of women who this does feel um, that this does feel right. And speak to any new mum who wants to go back to work. There is this certain level of like shame there about wanting to go back to work. Again, it's implied by society that we should be feeling this way because why would we choose our career over our children? Well, why can't we? Other people, other parents can. The other side of this parenting responsibility can. Why is it socially different for women to want to have that career instead of staying at home with the children? I don't think there is a right or wrong way to do this. It's just how you want to do this. And this is the problem because it's just implied that these are the options. It's society's expectations for us. So when we say it's not all men, and we know it's not all men, what I see is this: the not all men's voices are being heard, and hopefully, as we go on, I'll explain that kind of slightly better. Now, I'm not saying that men in the not all men category do not stand up for women. I'm sure they do. I follow loads of, well, I say I follow loads. I follow about three people online who does this. Three men online who like call out men on the things that they say, the things that they do, and their behaviour and things like that. And it's so refreshing to see that voice being said, those words being said from another man about the things that women experience, right? But these voices aren't loud enough, and it creates this kind of silence. So when we're saying it's not all men, and then we say yes, but we don't know which men they are, this is what we're talking about. We don't know because those voices are not heard. We don't hear that perspective from a man who is standing up for those basic human things that women should be having. And there is no shouting, there is no kind of violence around it, but there's also nothing or very kind of little. And I'm not sure that this is like, I think that this comes from toxic masculinity where men are conditioned the same way women are. Men are conditioned to, or it's a system that teaches men that they can't be emotional, that they can't challenge other men on the way that they speak. They risk being sort of like excluded from this circle of friends if they dare kind of speak up, and maybe they'll look too weak. Like, judging I'm not judging I'm not judging that because we both have our separate struggles. They just look differently. And I wanted to make this more balanced. So it's not just about women are unfairly treated, they are, but also from a perspective of a man's side, where it's like actually we do have this kind of masculine behavior, which is again very conditioned. It's very like you can't show emotion. Like, how dare you stand up to your friend who's like behaving like this woman? We all talk like this. So why is it wrong to now talk like this? It's like when we start to question that, it does something inside men that doesn't feel very comfortable, and that's fine, right? But the it's about the problem comes when we don't stand up for that, when we have this, when we see something is not right and we disagree with it, but we don't say anything about it. I am very much to my husband's disapproval a lot of the time. I'm very vocal if I see something happening between a man and a woman that I do not like. And that can go both ways. It's not very often, I will admit. But if I see some dude speaking to some woman that I don't think should be happening, then I will intervene. If I see children being treated in such a way that requires that I cannot step away from, I will intervene. I'm not I'm not going to stand by and just let any of this happen, because I have been in that situation, and I'm not going to be the person who um, pretends that it's all okay, right? But for a man to stand up for women can absolutely feel risky. I get that, because when we start calling out these things that have always just been, it can feel scary. It can sort of like maybe risk being like mocked or dismissed, or being told that you're overreacting. Instead, it's like it's just a joke, whatever. So there is that risk to it. But when we're talking about having a voice, when we're talking about men, the not all men crew having a voice over this is what we mean. When you stay silent, then we don't know that it's you that is safe. We don't know that it's not all men, because nobody is saying anything. Nobody is standing up for the things that actually protect women. If somebody is being if somebody in the office was being harassed by somebody and you're not doing anything about it, or if these men aren't doing anything about it, then you are just one of those men as well, because we're not seeing anything different, that your behavior, you're just allowing it to happen. And this is the problem. We don't know which men it is. And it's I don't know what I'm trying to say now. Because if you don't stand up for these things and you stay quiet, then this system that is built around all of this, a system that puts you in or the things that you believe that put you into the not all men category of men, if you're not standing up for that, if you're not saying, if you're not calling people out for it, then you are keeping that system going. Then you are part of the problem, because nothing is being done about it. Women have been shouting about this for years, for decades, forever. It feels like forever. And we get so far, but we can't take it further, because we need the not all men crew to start standing up for that as well, to start being part of that voice, to start being part of that conversation, so it does change it. Because if you're not willing to do anything, you're just there like, no, totally, I support my wife or my girlfriend or whatever, then that's fine. Be that person. Do that thing. Still stand next to your girlfriend, wife. But what about children? What about our daughters? What about our grandchildren? Our granddaughters? What about those? We want to be standing up for all women, right? If we are the not all men crew, we want to be standing up for women. We don't want to be silent. We don't silently disapproving with it. Doesn't change anything. Women were silently disapproving the fact that they couldn't own their own money, that they couldn't have their own house, that they weren't allowed a bank account, until somebody stood up and said, no, this is not okay anymore. I refuse to accept that this is the way things are. And it's no different in this situation. We need those men to show other men pretty much how to behave so that they are fucking nice so that we can solve this male loneliness epidemic by those men who are lonely, showing those men that are lonely how to behave and how to treat women. You know, this male loneliness epidemic conversation has been driving me mad because it's like, it's not a man's problem, it's a woman's problem. It's a women's problem. It's our fault that this epidemic is a thing that is being spoken about. I don't know if it's a thing, but it's being spoke about in a way that, like, well, women need to step up and make men feel like they're not lonely. Well, if women weren't worried that they were going to die at the hands of a man, then there wouldn't be a problem, would there? If men just treated women with respect, then maybe you wouldn't be lonely. Women have a very good sense of instinct when it comes to men. Um, and if you are just giving off that vibe, there is something there that is telling us to stay away. That's not our problem. That is a you problem. What is it? What is it that you believe about women that is making women feel like that? I'm just going to put that out there. Just that absolutely wasn't what I was supposed to be talking about or where that was supposed to be going, but obviously needed to come out. What is it? Because if you're lonely, if you can't maintain a relationship, it's not our fault. There is something there that you have to deal with first. It's going to sound really harsh. I'm sure it's going to sound harsh. Never mind. So if you are a man watching this and not offended by what I've just said, good for you, because the Not All Men crew is important. It is important, and we know, we know who you are when we know you. Okay, we can't just go into a pub and just guess who all of the Not All Men crew are. If you are in women's lives, then it's a pretty clear idea that you are part of the Not All Men crew, right? But stop defending yourself when it is said. Stop piping up and saying, yeah, but it's not all men. No, we know it's not all men. We absolutely know that. But what it comes down to is that you start listening, is that you start listening to the things that we are actually saying. When we're talking about men, we are not talking about all men. We are talking about a very specific type of man. Don't get defensive when we say men, because if it's not you, then you know it's not you. You don't need to stand up and say, hey, it's not all men. No, we know it's not all men. We know it's not you, but just listen and have like even just one honest conversation with a woman, with any woman in your life, not to fix it, not to debate it, not to explain why men and women are different and why they think differently, but just ask her, when have you felt unsafe? When have you felt dismissed? When have you been made to feel smaller? What did that feel like for you? And then the hardest part is to just believe her. Believe her when she says this thing, because they are personal experiences. And even though we'll all have very different versions of what will come out in words, it's going to all sound very similar. And this is a thing, it's like, men don't experience this for the most part. So it's about listening. It's about not judging it. It's about not trying to correct it. It's just about believing her, not minimizing it, not comparing it to something else, and not looking for the exception, because there absolutely will be an exception to it. Just like it's not all men, that's an exception. It's not all men. So don't try and find that woman who it's completely different for. And when you see sexism and when you see harassment, or you see this controlling behavior playing out at work with friends, maybe in jokes or even in these policies that people are trying to create around this, say something. Be there in that conversation. Don't just let it be something that just, well, that's somebody else's problem. that is what not all men looks like when we're thinking about it. When we want to know what men it isn't, this is kind of what we're looking for. We're looking for those men who kind of preach what they say, I guess. And that's, and I think that is important for us to um like for us to know, us as women to know who those not all men are. Um, yeah. And so this talk isn't about, um, it's not because I hate men. I love men. But it is because I refuse to pretend that women are just imagining all of this stuff. I stand with women, I stand next to women, and I still love men at the same time. And I believe that I can do both. I believe that we can do better if we stand up for this together. You know, we can't just bury our heads in the sand and just say, yeah, well, I didn't really know about that. But your gut instinct was telling you that you did, but you just didn't do something about it. And I think this is where it becomes really frustrating for women when we talk about these things, when we say that this is how we're experiencing things, that this is what is happening, but we're just like, yeah, well, gonna, I don't know. Um, but it's not about getting defensive over it. It's not about asking women to like um, soften their stories to make it more palatable. I am not ashamed of how I was treated in the first half of my life at all. It is not my shame to carry. I do not feel embarrassed by it. My my I have forgiven because I understand it more. I understand them more. And for the most part, it is forgotten. I don't dream. I don't have nightmares anymore. My husband has helped me rebuild that kind of trusting relationships. And so have all the men that I have around me. Um, so I don't soften the stories. If I'm going to say something, I'm going to tell you exactly how it happened. I'm not going to soften it up to make it more listenable because that's not what happened. Because again, that's silencing my voice. That's burying our head in the sand because we don't really want to know the details of these things. And it's I think because I want people to hear them and I want people to hear it even when it's uncomfortable, because it is uncomfortable talking about these things. Trust me, I know. I needed to go for a run today because I had this kind of, because even though my head is okay with my past, my body still remembers. So I needed to go for a run to just get rid of this like excess of whatever it was that was left inside me that I needed to just burn off. I needed to kind of get rid of because it was just sitting there, just not being able to go anywhere. And it's a trauma response, right? I spoke about something that I don't generally speak about in that way. Everybody knows about it because I will tell everybody again because I don't shy away from it. I don't necessarily do it in the context of like I am now. So there was this kind of response inside me, and I needed to get rid of it because it wasn't going to go anywhere. It was just floating around being fucking annoying. So I'm not going to shy away from the conversation. I'm not going to shy away and like make my story more palatable for people because I want it to be uncomfortable, because I want people to think about just like, actually, no, that's not fair. It's not right that people are being treated like this. It's not okay that this continues to happen because I want to build a world in my own tiny little space on the internet where hopefully I can just sort of like change part of that so that my daughter doesn't have to decide how safe it is for her to walk home, so that she doesn't have to have her keys in between her fingers so she can stab somebody in the eyes when she's walking home. It's like, I don't want her to live in that world. I don't want my grandchildren to live in that world or all of the kind of generations to come. I want that to be different because it absolutely cannot be like this. I want her to know that she is worthy, regardless of anything, regardless of anybody else's opinion. And I want her to know that she has every right to exist, despite what other people might say and what other people might think. And I think that's important. And I think that's what it is that ultimately I stand for. And even though this isn't about health, it's not about fitness, it's not about food, it is still an important part of this conversation. And that's what I'm here for. That's my purpose. And, we know that it's not all men. We know this, but we don't know which men you are. So, if you want to be part of that conversation, if you want to be part of the, really be part of the Not All Men Q crew, what are you going to do to show your support for women in this context or in any context? But what are you going to do? I, I can't tell you what to do. I can't make men do anything. I can't make anybody do anything that they want to do. But I think I just want to make us think that, yes, feminism should, I think every woman should be a feminist, because if you value your rights as a woman, then I think that that is something that we should embrace a little bit more, but we don't, because it has this bad like reputation around it. Like, well, all feminists must hate men. That's not true. Feminists just want to stand up for the basic rights of women. We should be treated with fairness and equally, not as somebody who needs to be managed and controlled. But then we have the other side of this where we have the toxic masculinity showing up, where it's also not safe for men to stand up for women in this context. So it's like we're kind of trying to figure this out, but I guess it's more what feels easy, and are you okay stepping out of what feels easy and into what is the right thing to do here. And I think we can apply that to every single area of our life. It's like, yeah, it might be easier, yes, it might be easier to behave like this, but is that the right way to behave? Is that for my conscience, is that the right way to behave? Not the wrong or right way, but for my conscience, is that the right way? Is that the right thing to do in this moment in time? Um, I think I'm going to leave it there. I think I've said enough. Yeah. So I will see you next time. Enjoy.